Okay, hello everyone. This is Corey Stoker from SkySwitch, and we have a special webinar for you today, and we have a few people joining us that you may or may not have seen on previous webinars. I'll go from the top of my screen down, Derek Hennekins, who is fairly new to SkySwitch as a product director, Frank Babusik, who's our COO, the man in charge, and Alona Giga, who is our development manager. We're going to be discussing 10DLC and kind of the ins and outs of it and try to clear up some confusion because it's a confusing topic for sure. So welcome to the webinar, everybody. You may notice first off, we have a new logo here, SkySwitch, a BCM1 company. This went into effect. We actually replaced our logo on Friday along with our website. So we're going to talk a lot, and we're going to try to rush through these slides fairly quickly. We don't want the slides to be the main point of this webinar. We want everyone to get a good understanding, but the slides are going to be a reference point that will be available for download. And yeah, we'll go from there. We'll do Q&A at the end. So ask your questions in the Zoom Q&A, and we'll go through all your questions. If you see something that pops out to you, just write it down or put in the question. We'll get to it at the end and go back to it if we don't address it through the slides. So let's kick this thing off. We have an overview of definitions, compliance overview, getting started, TCR, cost reporting, message pricing, support, and documentation. So if we look at, we got some general definitions here. Derek, you want to share some of the important definitions here briefly?
I think Frank is going to kick off a little bit of the intro on the definitions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi everybody. For those of you who I've met personally and spoke with, thanks for attending. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to meet yet or speak with, I'm Frank Babusik, and I'm behind the scenes here trying to help you be successful out there in the market. Everybody here at SkySwitch really appreciates your business. This has been a kind of a hectic year for us with our recent acquisition, and then Stir Shaken, and now here we are with 10DLC. So it's been a very busy year for us, and feel like we got this under control. Which is kind of the segue into what we're going to be talking about here today. So, as many of you know, that have been around a while, 10DLC was mostly P2P. And then, basically the ability for phone numbers to be moved around and different, advances in messaging and the ecosystem in messaging. Then, the carriers realized that 10DLC could be, a means to doing A to P, which is application to person. So with that, also is coming the guidelines and the compliance requirements that have been set pretty much from the wireless industry themselves. The Cellular Telecommunications Industry Association is the one that has predominantly been, communicating with the carriers and coming up with the framework for messaging to take place between businesses and consumers. And the whole intent of this is much like Stir Shaken, which is stop unwanted messages from reaching consumers. So hopefully, and I think eventually it will serve its purpose, and hopefully it will bring value to messaging in the future. And all of us as consumers will be appreciative of these policies, I think, once they fall into place. So there's a lot of information here. We're going to try to kind of go through it quickly so we can get to answers and questions that you may have in this area. This has been changing very rapidly over the last couple, I'd say 6 months to 9 months, which is kind of why we took a long time to get to this position to where we are today. Even today, even weekly, it's been changing. So I'm going to leave it to Derek here to continue on, and we'll look forward to your questions. So please.
Yeah, and let's address really quick who might need to know this stuff, and really it's anyone who's sending SMS on our network, or who might plan to in the future. If you don't have any customers using SMS on any network outside of the mobile providers, if you're directly a cell phone user on AT&T or Verizon, you don't have to worry about it. Pretty much everyone else does to some degree. We've tried to make the process easy and simplify it, but also give you the keys to run it. And so we're going to say A2P 10DLC a lot, and that's the app to person and 10-digit long code. If anyone was wondering and didn't see it on the last slide, we'll clear that up. And yeah, Derek, take it away.
Thanks. So part of the definitions page that we had just before this was going over a couple of different things that we're going to try to link together for everybody. So the campaign registry is that authority on whether or not you're verified, your messages, what is you say it is, that when you send it to a wireless subscriber. So the way it is laid out here is the CSP, which is us. We're managing all the campaigns and the brands and everything for you as your resellers. You will be submitting your brand and campaign information. And so the biggest thing here to understand is that the brand is assumed to be the P2P piece, I'm sorry, the wireless subscriber assumes that the brand is who is sending the message. The campaign itself is what is in that message. As far as use cases and things like that go, there are several different kinds, and we'll get into some of the pricing, but from the top down, the campaign is kind of like that gateway from the application to your wireless subscriber. The campaign service provider helps manage all that, and then the brand is identity, campaign is the use. One thing that some of the acronyms you'll see there too is MNO for mobile network operator. That's going to be AT&T, Verizon, all those guys. And then MDR. One thing that we will be introducing is along with CDR is MDR. So all your message data records, your originating, your terminating, all those types of things that come with your record details. So if I go to the next one. So the couple things here. 10DLC, we do have a process for verification and all of that, and it's a little bit different than the toll-free process today. So there is a little bit more information. If you want to jump to the next one, we can kind of walk through some of the stuff. The two different types of messaging that we have, again, 10DLC, this is the local number. So again, the 10DLC is a local telephone number that most people will respond to. Toll-free is going to be more of your traditional business messaging. Some of the things that we're going to look in here is the identity status. When you submit your brand, you're submitting who you are and your identity. And then what happens is you are verified by a third party through the campaign registry. And during that process, it's kind of set up as pending. So once your pending status is verified, you will be able to start creating your campaigns. The timeline for some of this is a couple days on the brand, and then a day or two on the campaign as well. Based on your content and based on your category that you're placed in, your throughput's going to vary. So if depending on your use case, so if you use like a low volume or something where it's not very much, you're going to be limited to some throughputs. Sometimes it's text per minute, or sometimes it's text per day. Some of that throughput's going to vary by carrier, and as well as the responses. So with our MDRs, we're going to look at trying to track some of the delivery responses, whether it was successful or not, and a lot of that's best effort. Also, along with these campaigns and brands, we're going to be helping with keywords and like opt-in, opt-out, and help. We can get into that in a little bit. I'll go into the next one. So this is kind of a layout of the relationships between the CSP, the reseller, the brand. Again, the brand is going to be the clients and the campaigns. So at the top, the SkySwitch is going to be managing all the resellers. The reseller level will manage all of the clients, or AKA brands. It is best and recommended to have a brand for every campaign, every client, and then you can break down the campaigns, whether it's one or multiple campaigns after that, based on the use cases. And then beyond that, your telephone numbers are assigned to the campaign. It's important to note that telephone numbers, which it's not in this image here, but they can only be assigned to one campaign at a time. So a brand can have multiple campaigns, multiple different use cases, and then you can break out your telephone numbers per campaign. Next one. So here's kind of the throughput flow. The brand registration happens whether you're verified or not, allows messaging. So if you're not verified and you haven't gone through the brand registration, your telephone number, even though it's SMS enabled, you're not going to be able to send messages out. Once your brand is verified, there's a couple different ways it's classified. If you're on the Russell 3000 list, that's basically the equivalent to a VIP list. So it's your brand is trusted. You get higher throughputs. You're in a better class for sending more and more messages. It's just assumed you're a bigger brand. If you're not on the Russell 3000 list, you're set to a lower tier class. You do have the ability to have a vetting process, which further identifies you, and it can allow for higher throughput, but it can also allow for lower based on the findings. So most, or I'd say 99% or maybe 100% of our resellers at this point are going to just be verified resellers. So on the right side, if you do apply for vetting, you can see that there's some different scores that can happen. And then again, you can get a little more throughput.
Yeah, so why might someone want to do vetting? Can you go over some of those examples?
Sure. So a couple of them are going to be things like charity and political. So if you have either of those, you're going to likely be required to go through the vetting process. Basically, if you're asking for money or whatever it is, they're going to want to make sure that you are who you say you are versus having a brand and a website that kind of match up. And so that'll help with that throughput as well. So from a reseller perspective, getting started, the first thing I think about is trying to identify who my clients are that are selling or using SMS. So there is some routing reports that you can run today to see where your SMS is routing. Pull out your domains and clients and things like that. Once you have your SMS customer base identified, we do have some brandable forms that'll help gather the brand information. So for example, if you're going to create a brand for every one of your clients, you'll want to fill out that form for each one, and then we'll have a way to submit them. Today, our process is manual, so we are working forward to having a portal created. It's in testing right now, but today you can send these brand submissions to our reports at SkySwitch email address. From there, if you haven't already done it, you'll set up for your reseller registration. And then your brand creation, whether it's just for your reseller or your business or your clients. From there, you'll drive down to the campaign. So at a minimum, you're likely going to have a conversational campaign set up for your business so that you can send and receive SMS messages via your apps or what you do today, whether it's going through a URL or email. Either way, you're gonna want to create a campaign so that those messages will flow through. Under the campaign, you're gonna set up your email notifications, and then you're gonna configure your telephone numbers. And we'll kind of dive in a little bit on that in a bit. In the future, you're going to be given a new setting or a feature on the DID or Manage portal. It's called 10DLC Management Menu. From there, you can edit or create your own reseller registration. That'll be like the first tab, and then you'll move through tabs going forward. You'll have your brand creation and your status. So you'll submit your brand, and once it's actually verified status, you'll be able to create your campaigns. Your campaign registration, you do have the use cases and examples. So for example, you have mixed case. You can pick up to 5 different types of use cases under mixed. So you can have things like I'm doing support, or I'm doing 2FA, or I'm doing marketing. And then from there, you'll pick the examples. The portal will have some predefined examples that you can either edit or accept as is. And then also the day you submit them and it's accepted, starts your term. Your term is quarterly, so it's always going to be 3 months for a campaign. You will be billed monthly for that campaign, but its renewal term is 3 months. You will have the option to auto renew. So when you're creating that campaign, you can always, there's a little toggle switch, you can always turn the auto renew on and off. So for example, if you're creating a marketing campaign that only needs to last through the holidays, you may not want to auto renew that, and then create other campaigns after that. And then you'll have your email notifications from there as well. The next tab after that is going to be your assignment. So you're going to pick your brand, you're going to pick your campaign and the domain that is assigned, and you'll get a list of all the telephone numbers at that point that are assigned to that campaign. You will have a per number, and you'll have a bulk capable way to assign numbers to that. And then also there's going to be a report that can be run in line with the campaign creation that will allow you to see the SMS enabled numbers where they're routing to if you're unsure whether or not they should be assigned to that campaign.
Okay, so I'm watching the questions here, and we have, I'm going to try to address most of these at the end, but we have a few things that we can kind of clarify. One question is, does this apply to send personal text messages or to a single person using your DID from like ReachUC, or does it only apply to marketing? And I can answer that. It pretty much is every message that's not coming from a Verizon, AT&T, whatever wireless carrier cell phone. So from our network, from ReachUC, for many of the applications, and for many business providers, it's going to be a requirement to be signed up and use 10DLC. And different companies are kind of doing this in slightly different ways. You'll find a lot more requirements on other partners, and maybe some less on some others, depending on the content and what you're doing. But it's a requirement going forward across the board for everyone if you want to continue sending SMS.
Yeah, so there's three main types of SMS messaging, and that's going to be your conversational, then your informational, and then your promotional. So even if it's conversational, just sending messages back and forth, with a client, if it comes from SkySwitch or originates on any one of our platforms, it's application to person at that point, and does fall under the requirement to have a branding campaign. So
yeah, we'll
creating
cost very shortly. There's a few questions about cost. Well, that's all coming up.
Yeah, let me add to that. SkySwitch is connected. Our primary SMS gateway provider is IntelliQuint. IntelliQuint, Bandwidth, FlowRoute, Twilio. When you're connected to any of those gateways, you're right away classified A to P. So there's no, you would think if we have a ReachUC phone and you're just texting someone back and forth on mobile occasionally, that it wouldn't be classified as A to P, but it's pretty much, if you're flowing through those gateways, you're A to P. There's pretty much no way around it, and that's how we have to handle it, because we are all basically business entities registering as a brand and a company to send messages through those gateways. And a little bit more color on TCR and how TCR came about, for those of you who might not know, but TCR was formed basically out of the wireless cellular association and the compliance requirements to be this third party platform that pretty much T-Mobile and AT&T align with. Verizon went and did their own thing and just charges surcharges for all A to P messaging. They have specific A to P messaging gateways and routes that the carriers send through. And T-Mobile and AT&T, they're all setting those up as well, but they're also using the TCR to do this verification process and this vetting process. And it's all about to be able to basically go back to the parties if there's any bad actors out there, to stop it, and at the same time not punish maybe other parties that are associated where those messages are coming from, right? So they're just trying to create these silos so that the good actors aren't being affected by the bad actors, maybe coming in through a service or an IP that's, has some, some bad actors on it. So hope that helps a little bit in that area.
Yeah, and one thing that you may or may not know as well is 10DLC kind of came about by the FCC declassifying or classifying text messages as an information service back in 2018. So it really just allowed the wireless providers to do what they want in terms of accepting and sending messages. And that's kind of the foundation of 10DLC today is, and the TCR and all that.
And this is also applying the Canadian, as far as our resellers that are operating in Canada, or if you have Canadian DIDs or you have Canadian customers, we're applying the policies that are being that are required with our providers with that same umbrella framework that would apply to Canada. They also are constantly adjusting and changing their rules. From the pricing that I've seen, I'm seeing surcharges, I'm seeing, restrictions there as well. So we feel like it's in the best interest of the company and our customers to apply those these same policies and processes with our Canadian DIDs as well, because we expect them to be shortly following or joining potentially the TCR. That's just our position, and we have to comply with our gateway provider. So that's the current situation right now regarding Canada. If anybody has any questions regarding Canada.
Yeah, we'll get into more questions. There's a ton of questions coming in and we figured there would be. It's a complex topic that we've been spending 4 hours plus a week just on discussing our findings. So it is a complex topic, and we'll get there. I think this page is just to kind of demonstrate what we're looking for to register a brand and campaign. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this specific thing, but the slide deck again will be available, and all this will be available in our documentation as well. So Derek, I'll let you have it back there.
Sure. One thing I'll go back to a little bit is when Frank refers to bad actor, there's a couple of things that would cause a violation and in some of this stuff. That the reason we're saying this is the brand and this is the campaign is because of this is we not only have bad actors that may be sending messages that aren't approved or are in violation, but also the amount of messages as well, which is why there's throughputs. So if somebody sends out a blast campaign or something that's on the campaign that doesn't have that kind of throughput, it's gonna throttle them down or not send it at all. So there's different cases of bad actor versus too many messages for what your campaign is allowed. So going into this, right now we do have a time limit on price increases. So the brand registration is a one-time cost. Right now it's $4. October 1st, it jumps up by $50. And so it's in your best interest to get your brands that you need to get registered, identified as soon as possible, so that we can avoid some of those charges. Going forward, the campaigns themselves, again, are monthly charge, depending on what it is. Again, the low volume mixed versus 2FA versus marketing, they have different fees, and those range from $2 to $10. Majority of them are closer to $10. But nonetheless, there are some lower ones.
We should specify too that there's no markup being done here. These are all fees imposed by the TCR, and they're just pass-through costs. There's no type of reseller program or anything for us.
Yep. And then Frank, do you want to talk about the per message pricing and the changes there?
Sure. Yeah, sure. We're due to all these changes and quite frankly, the last probably 9 months or more, we've been getting, picking up all these surcharges. They've been incremental. Used to be, it was pretty cut and dry. You would get billed for either, it was usually free inbound, and then it was a per fee outbound message cost. But now the carriers are charging, there's origination fees, there's A2P surcharge fees, there's, and these are with all the various different wireless carriers, not only just AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon, but your Canadian carriers, we're seeing them, and they're showing up on a bill. So with that, we have to adjust our pricing model and all the support that we have to do to make this work. And we feel like we can do that and still provide pricing to our resellers at a very competitive rate. Our target was to be, slightly below Twilio. And we will start come October 1st, we will start charging inbound and outbound pricing per message. And we also intend to cut the SMS enablement fee, which most of you are familiar with today, because we are billing that today, but we have not been billing for any messages. Those reports are available today in the Managed DID portal. If you were to go in and under your report generator and look at your message reports, you can see inbound and outbound messages. What we're doing, and it should be released any day now by Alona's team, which is we're going to be breaking out 8XX SMS, 8XX MMS, and then A2P SMS and A2P MMS. And each one of those will be on a per message pricing, both directions. So that reporting will tie into the new billing which will begin in October. I can say this because I've been looking at this hard the last several months, and I think probably most of the resellers wasn't even aware of that report. But I encourage you to go in there and look at the reports, and you'll see for most of you, it's very small amount of messages that are being used. But they have to be compliant. They're going to have to be registered with some type of campaign ID to continue to use outbound messaging come October 1st. So there will be more information coming in the pricing area, along with a new SMS rider, which is going to tie up basically the framework of SMS and MMS services on the SkySwitch network. And we're working through those details in that language today. And in general, we're just, passing through what we got to pass through with our carriers and our service providers, and the compliance rules and regulations that are being set by the CTIA. We're surely not making it more restrictive in any way. We're, if anything, we're trying to do a lot of things so you don't have to worry about it. And I say that because we're actually building in opt-in, opt-out, and help reporting for our resellers to push down to their customers, or even to push it all the way to the customer is our goal, so that you won't be tied up or with support related issues and tickets. We are spending a considerable amount of time internally. Some of the resellers probably on this call know, because we've been submitting toll-free verification forms and we're getting pushback on that. We're getting, it takes a lot of time. And, I'm a little concerned. I'm having faith in the system that, they're not going to be over restrictive come October 1st when they're, I think we're expecting to see maybe a little more tightening up by the mobile carriers and the A2P messaging. And I'm hoping that, they just kind of let things flow and see what it looks like out there before they start, blocking or, putting tighter restrictions on even people that maybe have registered, because I hear it's a bear like to get unblocked with AT&T. And I'm not saying that, I'm just, I'm not saying that with lightly, but we're working through some issues today internally. So we have to take this serious. And I think the market and everybody's going to digest it. It's definitely a little painful right now. And, but hopefully the companies and the business owners of those companies that you're supporting will understand that the intention is good in the end. So,
yeah, and it's very similar to stir shaking, and it's somewhat of the wild, wild west when you consider that every carrier can decide what they're going to do based on the verification level that you have and your score. Same thing with stir shaken. We haven't seen much of anything in that way yet, but it's probably going to just come in time with the future. The major difference here is no FCC regulation, so it's all coming down from the TCR and others.
Yeah, so the last slide here, just a little bit of the support pieces. The whole intent of this was to introduce you to it, kind of identify and define what the different pieces are of 10DLC. Where should you start? What tools do you have to get this set up and submitted? And then obviously at the tail end is how are we going to support it? So the managed DID telco portal piece is going to have a lot of that information in there. Your reports are going to give you some information. Part of the brand registration itself is a separate email address for alerts. And so you will have likely have a dedicated mailbox or something. You may send those to a ticketing system, however you want to handle them. There is going to be alerts based on success and failure. And in the future, alerts may be expanded to other things, including suspensions or violations. But for now, it's going to be success rates as far as verification. A lot of this has been thoroughly documented. And then up on our public-facing docs page, we probably have 6 or 8 docs already, everything from guides to, and Corey, if you want to hit the next page, you can kind of see what we got up there. We've got guides from a branding perspective, your campaign, the toll-free, which is a slightly different process, all the way down to the throughput guide. So there are some sample letters, things that you can use when doing a business consult with your end users, gathering that information. And so that there is, again, samples, what to share with them on for each of the use case and help them identify what the content is that they are going to be sending.
Great. So that time already? Well, before we get started with Q&A, just wanted to throw this out. Several months ago, we started a SkySwitch community Slack, and that gives resellers opportunity to work with each other, to ask questions. It could be anything like firewall questions to use case questions. And also the SkySwitch management is involved in this community Slack. It doesn't have all of our staff, and it's not an official place to go get support. But if you have questions or wondering how someone else is doing something, then you can participate here. So there's a link up on the page, which will take you to a form which will allow you to sign up. We're only allowing our partners in, and yeah, it's been great. So now is the day where we're officially opening it up to anyone of our partners who wants to join. So let's get to a few questions. Andrew Erstad asked, with TCR, are SMS now routing through a third party? If so, how will that affect throughput? And they're not, well, they're going pretty much through Inteliquent. We do have agreements in place with several providers, but Inteliquent's our primary source of sending SMS. And this kind of works in a very similar fashion to Stir Shaken. Without getting into the technical details, all the TCR stuff, all the campaign registry is handled through the SMS flow rather than call flow. So it's not, the messages themselves aren't being routed to the TCR. It's just a verification place for the receiving provider to go check and make sure that it's a verified number, verified campaign and brand. All right, so He also asked what happens if a message is sent that doesn't fall under a designated use case. Does that case get flagged or a message failure? I don't want to answer all the questions, so we can take turns here. Frank, why don't you take that one?
Yeah, so first of all, every phone number that is going to be sending an outbound message through SkySwitch will need to be associated with a campaign ID. We will be reporting delivery or error messages back to the resellers, or give them access to that information. Again, my goal is to push it down to the consumer or to the end customer as much as possible, so that that information can make it to where it needs to be. With regards to, someone sends a message in and it comes back with spam, or it comes back with, a stop message or unsubscribe. We're doing everything we can to push that information back down to you or to your customer, if that's possible, in a way that would be acceptable to our resellers. So we're looking into that option, but for sure the resellers will have that ability to see that type of those type of logs and that type of reporting. That's one thing we're working on behind the scenes for you. We've been working on that for several weeks now. We think that's going to be a differentiator in our service for resellers to sell into the market. We also are going to, like I said, provide an opt-in tool to import opt-ins. Say you go to a business and they've been doing SMS and they got a database and they've already opted in, and you want to load that database into SkySwitch's either vBroadcast SMS campaign system, or we're actually underway with a whole new SMS platform, which has not been released yet, but we're super excited about that. And that's going to have these opt-in, opt-out, and help functionalities built into this other interface, this portal, to help resellers manage and sell SMS services, because we see, all these compliancy requirements. You need a way to manage that. So we think that's a really important part of being able to be successful in this space. So
yeah, and I think we're also trying to kind of interfere to stop the carriers from flagging 3 times or from the campaign or brand being flagged, which it induces a hefty $10,000 fine from is it from the TCR or from the wireless carriers directly with 3 violations?
it's coming from the wireless carriers.
Right. So are we, and I believe we're putting things in place to just prevent that from surprising you. There will be some cutoff mechanisms. So you're not hit with $10,000 fines unless you.
Correct. So one is, again, like I said, if there's not a campaign ID associated with a phone number, outbound messages will not be able to be sent. And then if a individual opts out or reports spam to one phone number, that phone number would be blocked from sending out messages again to that phone number. And we're looking at doing that on a campaign level as well. But right now we're discussing that and how that would work. So what's the best way to do that? If one user reports spam, do you stop all associated numbers with that campaign? And I think there's going to be some discussions on that. It could be an error. There's resubscribe. There's a lot more information coming in this area, and how these processes will be working for you. And that's the intent of what we're doing, is to make all this work for you so it's more automated than having you to be engaged with your end customers for unnecessary, if someone reported a stop and the customer doesn't know why, and you're getting messages like they can't send messages, and so you can just see how it can snowball into effect and really eat up a lot of time. So it's a key area we're working on right now.
Yeah. Okay. So we have about 40 questions. We're going to try to stay and answer them all, or as many as we can. And figured there would be a lot of questions. So this will be helpful, I think, for the group and understanding. Next question is, what are the monthly associated costs? Is this on top of Reach UC cost? And it is. Again, the campaign and brand registry is all pass-through cost, but there are being tools added to the inbound and outbound messaging from different carriers, and there is going to be a change in the price per message cost for SMS. And again, Frank mentioned it was going to be rather competitive. It's going to be lower than Twilio. I'll be able to find more information about the actual cost. I believe it's in our docs. If not, we'll get it posted. Okay, so Andrew Aristad asked, would tier change improve organically over time, or is that something that has to be vetted? That's a question I don't know. Maybe Derek can shed some light. I don't think so, but
I haven't seen anything to that extent yet documented on how they're going to handle. I think it's a little bit too young to assume how they're going to handle organizations that maybe have now start to gain a history and a track record. But you would think there would be some extra added value that they would give.
okay. So Mark Selk asked if this is local numbers or toll free. Toll free is kind of goes through like a similar process, but it is separate from 10DLC.
Correct. Toll free is being handled by our service provider, and they push it upstream to their delivery providers, it's going. The form is similar, but the verification and the vetting process is a little bit different. So we are currently doing that today for many of our customers that have submitted those toll-free verification forms. And I encourage you, if you're using a toll-free number for SMS, to complete that form and to send it into ports@skyswitch.com so that they can process that for you. We get reminded weekly of numbers that are sending messages that are not that do not have the verification process form on file. So we're reaching out to many of you. Maybe it's not getting to some of the people that needs to get to, but we are doing that through support today.
Okay, so what happens to older DIDs? I assume that question is if you don't register a brand or campaign and associate the DID with the campaign. Yeah, Frank, I'll let you take
Correct.
that.
Yeah, correct. I mean, this goes for all messaging on all phone numbers on the SkySwitch network. There's no grandfathering in of any older DIDs. This is for going forward.
Yeah, if you're not registered, I think the messages just will stop going out. They'll kind of stop at our network when there's no campaign associated.
We will leave inbound on, but we will block outbound.
All right. So George asked, and we have to pay monthly and renew quarterly for customers that use SMS in the traditional way, similar to P2P. This is not good for us and not good for our customers, is kind of a comment. Yeah, I mean, this is all kind of just being brought in by the wireless carriers, and you're sending to their platforms, so they get to make the rules, and that goes back to the FCC making that change a couple years ago. yeah, all we can do is try to support it, make it easy, and pass through as much cost as we can, so it's as low priced as possible. I understand if you have like a one person business trying to send a few text messages a month from Reach EC, how that could hinder them, but it's just the way that it's going to be going forward. Okay, so Kristen Hunt, on the end user form, it mentions the higher education campaign. Higher education campaigns created on behalf of colleges or university. It also includes school districts and educational institutions that fall outside of any free to the consumer messaging model. Does this campaign include public and private schools? I believe it does. I'm not sure about this specific.
Yeah, let me look into that. Kristen, I can get back to you on that.
Okay. So Ben Russia, are only the MNOs, the SMS providers that qualify as P2P in the telecommunications ecosystem?
Basically, that's a true statement. If they're a wireless subscriber, meaning like if you're a subscriber and you get a bill from the wireless carrier, then you're basically effectively P2P.
All right, George asks, considering all this information is being provided to us late in the game with an October 1st deadline, what's the leniency regarding registration fees, considering that we still have to obtain the registration information from our customers? So we did send out an announcement about a month ago, and the price breaks are pretty much already there. SkySwitch isn't making any kind of profit on this, and they're mandates. So kind of has to go back to your customer as this is going to be this way or the highway, as in if they can send messages going forward.
Yeah,
maybe Frank is a better way to put that.
No, I mean, we sent notifications out in, I think it was like the very first few days of September. And we've been, you know, the most, I can tell you this, you want to try to get it done before October 1st, because then the fee goes up to $54. So this is not us. We have nothing to do with it. That fee's charged by TCR, and we have to pay it. So.
Yeah, and that the TCR, all the rules around this are still being changed daily, and that's been one of our biggest kind of grunts or dislikes about the process overall is we hear changes from different providers nearly daily of how they're going to handle everything. It's unfortunate, but it is still will probably change up until the first and beyond that. So Andy Chupa asked, do you have a mass DID registration spreadsheet, or do we have to use the JOT form for each DID?
So the JOT form is asking if you want to do a brand and or associated campaign. And once you do the brand one time, you won't need to do that again. Then you can just do campaigns. You can submit in a spreadsheet with phone numbers to associate. We can do that in masses on the back end for you. And this is part of the functionality in the new managed DID portal, which we will be allowing resellers to bulk assign or unassign. That's what Alona's team's been working on for the last 3-4 weeks. So that's very, very close. We're actually using it today in the back of our office for submitting your brands and campaigns off the forms. So we're testing it. And there's been challenges with TCR with their APIs and certain things that are just not making it ready for prime time. And Alona and her team have been diligently working on that in weekends and trying to get this thing done. So we're very close. I think we're going to make it, in the next few days, but regardless, we got to push through with what we got right now and just somehow, get it done for you. If you need registrations. I see some questions in here regarding MDRs, message data records. Yes, we are going to make those available for download and also for SFTP, just like we do with our CDRs to anywhere you want or to your billing provider if you're using a third-party billing provider and not one of SkySwitch's. So I think Mark Wassner and James Lavelle asked those.
Yeah, so got a couple questions about syncing to Datagate or Revio, and I guess you kind of addressed that a little bit. Did you want to provide further with the MDRs? I think it'll work off of a very similar process, though, and they can be SFTP'd.
Right. We're gonna set it up just like we do with our CDRs. You're gonna request where you want it sent, and we'll export the records and send it over to a repository at the far end.
Okay, so I need SMS that must continue to work on October 1st. What is my first step? And then there's a little correction. I have a small business for which SMS must work come October 1st. What is my first step today to make sure that it continues to work? So the first step would be going into our documents, getting the form, getting that customer registered. Are we going to be allowing any sort of SMS through the larger brand of the reseller account in the interim? How are we going to handle that portion, Frank?
So, we talk about this in our FAQs. We talk about the ability for the reseller to decide if they want to register their brand and one campaign and assign that campaign ID to all of their companies. There's some risks involved there. That would be a reseller's decision if they want to do it. When we first sent out just to show you how things are changing, prior to like September 1st, there was no low volume mix use case, meaning it was like, I don't know, 10 texts per minute, and T-Mobile didn't have a low volume mix. So only about 2 weeks ago, they came out with this low volume mix where T-Mobile will allow 2,000 messages per day throughput, and AT&T will allow 75 texts per minute. That will cover, 97% of our resellers' usage. The question that you have to ask yourself is, do I sign that campaign ID across multiple companies? If there's a bad actor, it could take down your other companies. That would not be, a problem. And you could say, well, maybe that's, what is, I don't know. You don't know if someone's going to be in the office texting out something about, cannabis, or texting out something that's, it's not compliant. And then if they go to shut that campaign down, then we have to shut down all the numbers associated to that campaign. So that's the dilemma. But with the $2, a low mixed volume use case is right now it's $4 to register the brand, and it's $2 a month going forward.
Right.
I would recommend.
Sorry, Frank.
No, it's okay. I just say I would recommend going that route. It's just not worth it to put your other customers at risk unless you feel completely comfortable with all of their uses and how they're using ReachUC or texting. So there's a couple questions there about ReachUC, but yes, ReachUC needs a campaign ID associated with it, and we need to maintain 100% compliance on our network the best we can.
In your very first step, what I was going to say is probably to register your brand yourself and register that low volume mix campaign, and then start with your customers just to kind of ensure that you have a safeguard, and we'll be able to send SMSs if one of your customers doesn't respond with information in time. So are competitors like RingCentral, 8x8, Mitel having to do this as well?
I'm not sure what they're doing.
Yeah, well, we're not following what individual competitors are. They different competitors have to do it, and they may do it at different levels. So it's hard to say. Everyone's kind of doing something a little bit differently here, and it's hard to find consistent information about how other companies are doing it. We're pretty much looking at the information from the different wireless providers and some of the larger estimates gateways.
Our three carriers are all doing it the same, basically. And so they all put us on notice with compliance and the violations and the fines. So it's, you know, it's pretty transparent, and Twilio is pretty much the same. We have some interconnection there too now. And we're actually doing some testing there for Canada with MMS delivery. It's always been a difficult challenge up there so we got some new testing going on there. But as far as the rules regarding A2P and compliance, it's the same. So whoever's not doing it, maybe is just they're going to have to do something. And I think a lot of people are late to this because it's been changing so much over the last, 6 months, and it kind of held us off. We were just like waiting to see. I mean, TCR, it seems like they're just coming together here. Like, it's kind of, if you haven't been in it, we're in it every day, and Alona's team's in it every day in the development side, and literally fields are being added, things are changing, terminology is changing, scores are changing. It's quite challenging. So, and with that said, AT&T, many of you probably don't know this, but AT&T just put a grace period in on their registration. So it's only T-Mobile that's holding to this October 1st deadline right now. Verizon is just charging a surcharge on all A2P traffic, and they got their own AI that is basically reading the messages, looking at the patterns on what's going on, and looking at pattern and matrices to see, if there's any bad actors in those threads. So that they're just handling it themselves. They're not. I think they're participating in TCR, but they're not. They pretty much said we'll just handle this ourselves. And I'm not sure which way it's going to go in the industry, but I think there's been so much input vested into TCR with AT&T and T-Mobile and in the wireless industry in general. I think I don't expect it to go away. So that really tells you a lot about the landscape of where we're at today. And we apologize. We feel like we're just dropping this on you, but it's been a difficult one to lasso in and to get it to where it is today.
Yeah, so we have a few questions that we can kind of kill all at once with. Does each DID need brand registration, or can numbers fall under the same brand and same campaign, multiple numbers? And you can have as many numbers as you want tied to a campaign. And it's just kind of the poisoning of the well concept. If you're tying together many different numbers under one campaign, and that campaign gets flagged, you could potentially prevent outbound delivery from other numbers belonging to that campaign. So when will we hear back from the registration process? I think it normally takes 1 to 2 days.
Yeah, it's pretty much immediate. If you're a private company with LLC Inc., it looks like TCR is using your, one of the required items is your EIN number, your government registration number. They're doing a quick lookup, seeing if it's a valid company, and it matches, and then boom, you're put in a verified status. And with a verified status and a low mix, like low class tiered campaign, like low mix volume, you're like immediately approved to be sending 2,000 messages a day or 75 texts per minute with AT&T. It's that simple. Now if you,
It's
and
12
we're
o'clock.
going to be reporting that in the portal, and we're going to report if there is a problem to you. Like if you put a submission in and it comes back with a problem, we'll send you an email saying, hey, there was a problem here. The status is unverified. And then we'll have to handle it, whatever the items that came back on what the problem is, or review the data. Maybe there was a mistake made by the customer or the entry, and we'll fix it. So this is all part of our process in SkySwitch to ensure that we're making this as simple as possible for you, and keep you informed on the statuses of where your companies are with their campaigns, their expiration dates, and managing it.
Okay, so got a few about what is the risk about running clients under the reseller brand, and then what do we do to do that? And I think we kind of covered that. You could potentially, if someone's doing some SMS that fall outside of what they're supposed to, as like a low volume mixed or just mixed use case, you could potentially get your entire brand campaign blocked from sending messages to a carrier. So a lot of questions about that. I just got notification that this URL, this short URL, is no longer working. So I'll generate a new one and throw it up on the screen. I apologize for that. Does number pooling mean there are number limits per brand and use case? I'm guessing Andrew's meaning actual text message limits.
I can answer that one there, Corey. So it has to do with the provisioning on the other side of it. So like with T-Mobile, if it's over 49, it's a different type of or different process for provisioning within TCR and such. So they want to know if you're going to have a campaign that has above 49 telephone numbers associated with it. It's really not much more than that. So.
Okay. So again, there's quite a bit on the single campaign. Guess we killed a lot with that. With 10 DLC and toll free, does that refer to the destination or the source? So that's, well, it's the number on our side is what that's referring to. So the source number of the outbound messages. Luke Popejoy asked, will the new SMS platform be released before October 1st? And no, I don't think we're that close. We're pretty close, but not October 1st. Do we have any kind of ETAs on that, Derek, Frank?
We're probably realistically 2 to 3 weeks out. There's one of the things is we're putting in some functionality around help. If someone texts help to any of your numbers, you will be able to control the messages that going out to respond, and that will be a variable that you can change, or your end customer could change. And there's one level of credentials that we need to put, we're having added in to the platform that we need in order to provide the service to you. I can tell you the product is going to be called Cloud Message, and the URL is going to be your reseller brand.cloudmessage.io for the standard white label product. And then if you want to private label it, you will be able to private label it, and it will have a mobile app as well that will be downloadable for your for your end customers. So we got some great ideas around this product. We're very excited about it. I think it's going to be a great game changer and a door opener for our resellers to go in and start talking about, what they're doing for SMS or messaging, or did they ever think about it? And then, walk their way right into the voice side and sell seats, or get them on as a messaging customer first and then sell the seats. But so we're very excited about that. I don't want to get too ahead of myself on that, but it will be coming out. This all, kind of took our priority in compliance, and that compliance pieces fall into the new messaging platform. So we're making sure that whatever service you choose on SkySwitch, the compliance portion of it will be built into the network for you, and the reporting will be available to you to manage that. So
what about, here's another good question. What about inbound only customers? Do we still have to register? And I would think that would fall well under like your general brand, just to have them associated with your brand. But
no, we're gonna let inbound messages come in. It's outbound that's the problem.
Right. There could be future action on inbound messages to us, but there's no plans at this point. So they'll be safe for inbound only, but that could potentially change in the distant future.
Outbound messages will be blocked anyway. So if they go to reply, it's going to stop at our gateway, before our gateway anyway. So.
Right. They won't be able to reply. There's no outbound message, not even but inbound will be available. And, it's kind of if you really have, if push comes to shove and you're having a hard time getting a customer to respond, I mean, that may be the one that gets them to respond to you, to sign up their brand and their campaign. Not that you want it to happen that way, but that's the reality of it. None of us want to go down the rabbit hole of having to deal with an acquisition of a violation, and the time and the effort to handle that. So. Okay.
Is someone actually verifying the tax ID and other information, or is it just numbers to put on file? There is a verification process that's done by the TCR directly. So you can't just throw in fake numbers. It'll get kicked back.
If it's unverified, no messages can go out. It's that simple.
Right. So I'm trying to brush past some of the repeat messages here. If we have a client that has 20 DID numbers with SMS enabled, well, they have to first get a brand name for the client, then create 20 campaigns. Now, again, this would only need a single campaign if it's for one customer. Now, if they're using different use cases, so you might have like a low volume mixed use case, but then they also do like a broadcast, you would want to register 2 different campaigns for that. Like if they're broadcasting SMS to their customer base through a different number, and then they have low volume mixed use case, you want to split those out. In general, I think any regular messaging will fall under that low volume mixed case.
Keep in mind, one telephone number can only be assigned to a single campaign, but multiple campaigns can be assigned to a brand. So again, if he's got marketing and you get 20 of those numbers and one of them does marketing, that one number will be assigned to that marketing campaign. The other 19 would be the mixed, but still associated with the same brand.
Right. So our SMS messages to non-MNO carriers also going to be authenticated in the same way, subject to the same potential delivery hazards. The answer is yes. It's going to be not common to see any sort of restriction done from smaller carriers at the get-go, but they will get the same kind of information. Will our MSA need to be updated? There will be a rider. We got a question. Should I send the Jot form link to my clients to register their brand?
No, we gave a brandable form. It's a Word doc. You can put your logo on it, and it doesn't have the reseller ID on it. You can give them that form to fill out, and then you can submit that to ports at SkySwitch. They will process it under your brand, and then we will update you with the status.
And once the portal's live, you can do that yourself all through the telco portal.
Right, but the brandable downloadable form is for something that you can put on your website, or you could download, and you could put your logo on it and your contact information, and you could give it to them to get that information back to you, right? And then someone will eventually be able to just put it in the portal and input that information in. And if you don't, we will do that for you. But it would be faster, obviously once the portal's up, the reseller just puts it in themselves. But we understand. I mean, it's kind of, we'll help out there.
Okay, so we're asking, Bill Smith is asking about violations. If someone just reports a legitimate message as a bad message, how will that work? All the verification, all that kind of stuff is done by the wireless provider themselves, and I'm sure they'll be analyzed and looked at to make sure that they fit within the campaign or not. We will prevent if someone hits stop to reach UC or to one of our other SMS platforms, they won't be able, no more messages will be able to go to that destination. So as long as you're in compliance there, then that shouldn't really be a problem. Can I assume SMS, MMS that stays on the SkySwitch network will not require a brand and campaign registration? Yeah, if you're like reach UC to reach UC, extension to extension, I don't think there's going to be any enforcement of campaign or brand. Maybe Alona can address that.
Yes, we will not block that if it's within the network.
Okay. Yeah, and we realize that most of the end customers in these situations are not going to be on the Russell 3000 list, and some of the questions are about just the verification and then the rating on the messages. And at this point, it's hard to say. I think that overall, just having the TCR in place, having your brand and campaign registered with a number is going to improve your delivery rate off of what it is today without any sort of verification from the carriers. We don't know for sure. It's up to the providers to handle their inbound messages as they want to. That's a basic idea. So what is the TCR? The TCR is the campaign registry. It's by the CTIA. I think is that the right acronym? What is that? Cellular Telecommunications. Frank, help me out here.
Frank, you're muted.
Yeah, Cellular Telecommunications Industry Association. So,
yeah. So the campaign registry has a website. You can see it. You can look at it. Unfortunately, their documentation isn't the greatest yet. Another downside of it not being run by the FCC in this case. Let's see, MSA. Can we register a reseller brand? That's a lot of these questions go down to that. If we register multiple low volume campaigns to our own reseller brand and one bad actor is discovered in one of the campaigns, I understand that all of the other DIDs in that campaign will be blocked, but will the rest of the numbers in the other campaigns be subject to the blocking as well? That's a good question.
Only if it goes up to the brand level. So if there's enough violations and enough campaigns to get up to the brand level, will others be affected? But anything that's violation, whether it be too many messages or bad content, it'll affect that local telephone number and the campaign it's associated with, along with the telephone numbers in that campaign as well.
Let's see, if the customer is just using the directory bot, do we still need to do this? Definitely. Well, if they're only using it inbound and for the directory purpose, no, because there's no SMS sent back in that. Actually,
No, in a directory,
there is SMS
they're sending messages back.
Yeah. So of course the directory bot is sending back the directory options via SMS. So yes, you would still need to do that.
Right. Any outbound message, if there's an outbound message, we have to have a campaign ID, and that's what you need to remember.
We got a few questions about complaints about the pricing of the brand and TCR registration. We feel the same way. It is kind of crazy that's happening and it's being imposed. Again, we're not marking up any of the costs, and they're just being passed through here.
Hopefully, we should feel strongly. You should all be sending a message to the CTIA and tell them to talk to T-Mobile, and because it's T-Mobile that's requiring the $50.
Yeah. If you look at their actual the rates for all the different mobile carriers, that's T-Mobile that's responsible for most of these fees.
Yeah, I wish they all would have just followed Verizon and just put a surcharge on it. I mean, to me, that would have been the best way to do it, because you're they're basically surcharging all the messaging, and that's how they're recouping their costs to do what they're doing in their network to monitor and to police the A2P messaging. I don't know. I don't know. I think the $50 is exorbitant. It's ridiculous, personally, but there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, can we opt out of having messages sent to T-Mobile and just let customers know it's because they suck? Quotes there, not me. No,
Yeah.
I wish, but that was funny to read there.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't keep track. I mean, it would be, one day if we get maybe even Twilio's not doing that. So I don't even want to say what I was thinking. I just don't even see a way to track all that, the movement and the moving around the phone numbers between carriers and having systems in place to, do all that on the fly.
Yeah, so Canadian customers typically don't use US cell carriers. Why do we have to pay the $54 fee for Canadian DIDs? And the fee is actually, while T-Mobile's collecting a big piece of it, the fee is being imposed by the TCR themselves. And in Canada, they're closely following, and it looks like all the major carriers up there are also adopting in the TCR. So that's just, it's a TCR cost, really, even though the fees are coming from T-Mobile there. It's the danger of a group of wireless carriers getting together, I guess.
Yeah, and let me say this on Canada. We're not closed-minded to changing the policy or making changes. It's just not likely until there's a good enough reason where it's something that we could do just to that makes financial sense to support it and to make those changes, and we would make that investment. But right now, it's not even clearly defined up there. It's changing, and we're not going to change and then have to change back. I think they're watching the US market, and they're going to see how it works out. I mean, they're following Stir Shaken, so I expect that they're gonna follow this process as well. it just makes sense because you got Canadian customers sending down to US carriers. So, you know, if they're coming in at A to P, they're going to have to absorb those costs.
So I may have said something because we got a few questions. I may have misstated something, but Brandon campaign cost may have been Frank, may have been me, I'm not sure. But the brand fee is going to be $54, and that's a one-time cost. The campaign fee is a 3-month commitment on the campaign fee. It's going to be anywhere from $2 to $10 a month, depending on the type of campaign. But right now, also the brand registration fee is $4, I believe.
Correct. The brand fee is as an NRC charge, it's a one-time charge, and the campaign fees are a monthly recurring with a 3-month commit. And that would be billed monthly, not upfront.
Yeah, too many messages was mentioned. Can you emphasize what constitutes too many messages? Each campaign type has its own kind of number or association with each of the wireless providers. So T-Mobile and AT&T and Verizon may all impose different limits based on the campaign type. But in general, I think Frank mentioned the mixed low volume message, and that will handle most of our end clients and customers. If it's going to go over, what do you have those numbers in front of you, Frank? What were they?
For mixed, it's 2008 T-Mobile low volume mixed for just a verified company with no vetting score is 2,000 messages per day. For AT&T, they're throttling at 75 texts per minute. So you can do the math on that.
Yep. Okay. So can you pass fees onto the billing platform, Datagate Rev.io? I think we're asking about the actual billing item. How can that just be passed on to the end client? And I'm not a billing guy, but I would say yes.
Say this again. What was this question?
Can the billing item for the brands and campaigns just be passed on through Rev.io or Datagate?
Yeah, they would be billed as a line item and a product to your customer. Yes, they could be passed on. And we're going to be providing message data records available to our resellers so that if they're using a billing provider that can accept those records and they're going to be in the standard industry format, they should be able to process those records and bill off of those records. In short, we're also going to be providing count reports on what was delivered. So that's what we're going to bill off of, delivered messages only.
So here's a good one. What's the lead time for registering a DID if the brand and campaign are already registered? Is that instant? Fairly instant?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of when it gets processed in the queue. Once we do it, once the managed DID portal has the interface up, it'll all be through the API. It'll be instantaneously. You'll be able to go in there, and if they add a new phone number, you'll be able to add it to that campaign right away.
I believe a recent change we had on the platform anyways was being able to add SMS entitlement to a port-in telephone number. So we should be able to stage a lot of that up, regardless if it's a port-in or a purchase number.
Okay, so we have a few questions about the required keywords, the help and opt out and stop, all that stuff. So we already do the stop keywords today. And the changes are really going to be the opt-in, opt-out, and subscriber help. Who wants to explain how we're going to handle that? Alona?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You want to go, Alona? You want me to go?
Go ahead, Frank.
Okay. I'll try not to add anything to your list. All right. So there is going to be an opt-in message. In that opt-in message, the user will, this is if you have a new customer and they say, yeah, we want to use SMS, and they don't have a a opt-in list where they say, yep, they signed up on the website and they gave us permission to do, you know, communicate with them through messaging, or they, you know, in our agreement, they agree to messaging, or, you know, wherever they may have opted into some sort of messaging practice. If that company or customer has that list and they give it to you, you will be able to upload this into our system, and we will take note that these are opted in numbers, and you are free to, you know, obviously start sending messages to them without requiring the first message being a opt-in. And in that first message, if you don't have that in place and you want to use the system that we're putting in place, you will be able to set up your first message to be an opt-in message saying company name, you are, you know, like most all of us have seen come across our phone, you know, reply 1 to for yes, or 3 for opt out, or 1 to confirm and 3 to opt out. So we'll have keywords, we'll have numbers, we'll make it as easy as possible. And then the same thing with opt out, we'll use all the standard industry terms, which are defined in the CTIA with stop, spam, quit, you know, those words, any of those words come in, then they would be opted out. And then the help is if anybody, you, as a requirement in CTIA, you have to, if a user types help, you have to respond with contact information for that company. So it'll be an email address, a phone number, where they can get a hold of someone to discuss whatever. So they're the 3 items that we're going to be putting in place.
In addition, we will be developing a page. We will in the Managed ID portal, wherein you could put in your help response, info response for your campaign.
Yeah, that'll be a variable field. So you'll be able to do that on the fly, and then boom, your company will be set up. You'll be empowered to do that.
There will be a download feature as well, so you could download your opt-in list and opt-out list.
Okay, so we're getting down to the last few questions, a couple questions. Any ETA on the new management portal? I know it's any day now, Alona.
Any day this week.
Yeah, so we'll definitely send an announcement when when it's being updated, and kind of help kind of automate the process rather than a jot form. Did we include any screenshots?
We did at the bottom. If you want to go down to 15, you can kind of see the portal. There's one of each of the tabs. So I don't know if Alona want to go through this. You got your reseller information. So once your reseller is registered and your brand is created, so this is where you're going to go back and make edits, changes to your reseller information. Notice that the email address and the alerts are separate. So if you want to have your user your alerts go to something else, you can change them. So the next page goes through the brands and campaigns. So I'm gonna go to the next one.
Yep. The button's not working. There we go.
Oh, there you go. So once your brand is submitted for verification, you can see on here the test ABC group is pending. While in a pending state, you can't actually submit for campaigns, and so but you can add the campaign in a draft status at this point. So once your pending verification on your brand is successful, then you can submit for your campaign. On here, you're going to be able to see when that was registered. The term is 3 months, and so you'll also see in the future, the date it ends. We will be putting in notifications. I think 2 weeks, 2 days, that type of thing prior to any ending of a campaign that doesn't have an auto renewal, and so you'll have the chance to renew that. And then also there's a status and edit functions as well. So if a carrier says it's approved, you'll see your campaign has been accepted at that point. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it should say each of the carriers that accept it. Is that correct, Alona?
So sorry, can you repeat that?
On the carrier status, that'll say which carriers have accepted that campaign, correct?
Correct, correct.
Okay. And then again, you can have multiple campaigns for your brand. So in this case, you see the add campaign button at the bottom. So if this was a mixed low volume usage and you still wanted to add your marketing, you would create a second marketing campaign, and you could differentiate them in the description. Also, the use case will tell you which one it is. And then the next page here kind of goes through the assignment. So in a bulk list, you can select your brand, your campaign, and your domain, and then your view is going to be all the telephone numbers associated with that campaign inside of that domain. You have the option to switch the radio button to see SMS unassigned from that campaign as well. So if you're looking for a number that you want to pull over from either an unassigned campaign or a different campaign into this one, you'll see that there. And also we added the show SMS route. Now this is a database lookup piece. So when you check that and hit search, it's actually going to show you all the SMS enabled DIDs or telephone numbers within that domain and where they route to. So if one goes to vBroadcast or one goes to Reach UC or one goes to a URL, you'll be able to see where they actually get routed to, so you can better understand whether or not that number should be associated with that campaign. You can select them and then hit your bulk action at the top right and assign them as well as remove them from the campaign. And then let Alona talk about the tools.
Okay, the tools here in the imports portion, you could upload the CSV, which allows you to bulk assign phone numbers to campaigns. So it could be a mix of campaigns and mix of phone numbers. And then you choose the file, upload it, and apply CSV button here. And then it will give you the numbers that failed in the assignment. And therefore you could review why that failed. And also you could retry later. The quick assistant is more of like what you probably need the first time you do this. You select the brand and the campaign, and then you select if you're going to assign all the numbers in all domains to that banner campaign or selected domains. That's it.
Okay.
Okay, so let me say one more thing. There was a good question that came in. Can we just register a brand and not the campaign at this time? And that would be yes.
Yes.
I believe I believe we can do that, and that would be maybe a good workaround for a lot of resellers that are maybe feel like their customers may be slow to get the campaign information in.
So I'm surprised this one hasn't come up, but if we already registered with the TCR, should I register with SkySwitch when the portal becomes available, or would that just result in double billing from SkySwitch and the TCR? How are we going to handle that?
So we do have a couple resellers that went ahead and registered with the TCR, and that's fine. But there's a $200 fee to do that, and then the problem is we don't have it worked into our portals yet, Alona, right? For handling.
We're going to, yeah, if there's a situation like that, open a ticket, we'll do it manually, work around it behind the scenes.
Yeah, but are you going to be able to, I mean, like, we're going to have to manually update the back ends just to so that these tools in our telco portal would be usable. Yes. Correct?
Correct.
So you would lose, you're gonna have to wait a little bit then on us to, and obviously, it's not a scalable process. I don't know how long or much we can support something like that. But this tool is for because we're integrated in with TCR with our APIs, with our account information. So we only have access to our information. We would not have access to your information. So, to be honest with you, I haven't thought through if it's, if it's not, if we have to look at, I mean, our resources are limited to a point where if we have to take resources away to such a amount that, we would have to maybe consider charging some fees to do these manual updates, or, but So that question is to be seen. I'm not sure who's asking that question. I'd be glad to talk to you offline about that. Was that Kristen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Already
Okay.
going to call Kristen.
Yeah. Kristen and I had a discussion. We can talk more about that. It's not the normal. There's only one other reseller I know of that registered with the TCR already, and they're doing some BYOT stuff, but they're using us for messaging on the Reach UC stuff. So those are kind of unique situations. We'll try to work with you. We'll try not to charge any extra fees than what you're seeing here. That's my answer right now. So we want to accommodate.
I think the last question, when will the MSA details be updated with the new costs?
That will be in the next coming days. Again, the pricing is in our FAQs right now. And the SMS enablement fees are going to be cut in half. So if you looked at your MSA today, you would see that those fees are going to be basically cut in half because there's no more outbound messages included in that cost, and all messages inbound and outbound will be charged a fee based on the type of message, meaning A to P, 8XX, or A to P SMS, 10 DLC.
All right. Well, I think we got to the bottom of the questions, and there's still 90 people on. So that's, I think we must have answered everything. And if you guys have further questions, you can send a ticket in to support. Either I or Frank or Derek will get back to you. It may take just normal than our average SLA response time, but we'll get to them as quickly as possible. And I think we can wrap it up from there. Hopefully this helped clear the air for everyone. Thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everybody. Really appreciate it. We're going to be a leader in this space. So, we're doing everything up front on the front end to make it easy for you on the to go out and sell. I think hopefully the best case scenario here is this will clean up the industry a little bit and then put more value on this type of service for resale. So
all right.
that's what I'm hoping. All right. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.